Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Karen Levin. I am the Executive Director of the Baltimore Zionist District. Thank you again for joining us tonight, and a special welcome to our BBYO teens as we honor International Holocaust Remembrance Day, which takes place this Wednesday, January 27th. From 1941 to 1945, Nazi Germany and its collaborators committed the systematic murder of over 6 million Jews. The Holocaust, also known as the Shoah, was Nazi Germany's final solution for eliminating all the Jewish people with Nazi Germany's grasp. By the end of this heinous act, roughly 2/3 of Europe's Jewish population had been murdered. The United Nations designated International Holocaust Remembrance Day on November 1st, 2005. Please join me this evening in welcoming Sami Steigmann, Holocaust survivor, motivational speaker. Sami Steigmann is a Holocaust survivor who lives to tell his story through speaking at schools, organizations, media outlets, and more. He is passionate about his role in sharing a fresh perspective of his hope, his life, and his faith. His advice to the young people is to never give up, never lose hope, and enjoy the life that you've been given. Never be a perpetrator, but most importantly, never be a stand-byer. The greatest tragedy in human history was the Holocaust and all the genocides that happened because the world stood by and did nothing. Thank you, Sami, for being here tonight.
I am very honored to be here. And before I will tell you my story, I want to give you the background of the Holocaust, because I have realized after speaking to approximately 150,000 young people, I realized that most of them are clueless about the evolution of the Holocaust. So I want to give a context before I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. But before that, there is something else that what I want to do. 1 second, let me share this one. Okay, I'm going to share it. Okay. Now, I cannot see. Okay. Yeah, okay, it works. What happened? I lost it.
I think you stopped the share.
Share it again.
Share again. Okay. Okay, 1 second. Okay, I put in. Okay, picture share. Okay, very good. Okay. So one of the things that I want to talk is we are dealing right now with the virus, COVID-19. For practical purposes, I live in Manhattan. I have been in house arrest for 9 months. But my positive attitude that sustained me throughout my life helped me also go through that period of time without having negative side effects. But I want to tell you that we have something that is a virus that is much more dangerous than COVID-19. And that is the virus of bigotry, anti-Semitism, hatred, ideology. And this is an area that can be minimized, okay, only through education. And I found out recently that 12 states mandate World War II, genocide, and Holocaust curriculum. I was extremely happy. I said, wonderful, let's work, okay, to have it in every single state. But when I did some research, I was completely shocked. from all of the people, okay, the schools and campuses where I was, I met only 2 teachers that teach those subjects for a full year. Most of them, it's only for a semester. A lot of them only for 2, 3 days. And there is no uniform curriculum, okay, that everybody can learn. The other interesting thing is, okay, that the education here is not adequate. And we have to make sure that we are educating the young people when they're still young. Because right now, what's happening in this country, okay, and I'm going to talk about tolerance. And if you don't agree with my opinion, that's fine. Just accept it, okay, and respect that may have a different opinion. But I want to tell you something. What's happening today in schools and in campuses, it's not education. It is indoctrination. And we have to fight very hard, okay, to do that. I also found out not only that I'm talking about our generation, the Jewish kids, don't really know about the evolution of the Holocaust, but they have no spiritual connection to Israel. And Israel is not a country like any other country. Okay, so yeah, I know what I have to do. Okay. Okay. So we're going to explore here, first of all, the background of the Holocaust, okay, the difference between Poland and Europe, the Holocaust, the unofficial and official one. And after that, I also want to use, which is very important, the use of the proper words. Because right now, what's happening in this country, I normally tell everybody not to compare anything that's happening today with the past. But there is one thing that we can learn. There are right now people are using the wrong words. Okay, we don't stand up to them. Our leaders don't do that. We use the wrong words, and at the same time, the posters that we are having on social media. Okay, it's very comparison because it evolves from the beginning. So let's go to the background. It did not happen suddenly. Anti-Semitism is 4,000 years old. So what happened is it starts with words, with posters, okay? And unfortunately, it's happening today. The Nazis, when they came to power, their initial goal was not to murder the Jews. Their initial goal was, okay, to have a Germany free of Jewish people. As a matter of fact, the first concentration camp that they had in Germany, Dachau, they did not go after the Jews. They went after their political enemies, the communists. It so happened that most of the communists were Jews, but they did not initially target the Jews. To accomplish their goal of having a Germany free of Jews, they came out in 1935 with draconic laws, the Nuremberg laws. They took away their citizenship, and they made it so difficult. And I want you to understand, when we use the wrong words, posters and everything else, that leads to discrimination. And eventually it leads to other things. So everything it evolves. So when the war started, by the way, before the war started in Germany, they lived between 600,000 and 800,000 Jews. After the Nuremberg laws, at the beginning of the war, only 200 remained. A lot of them remained in Germany because the Jewish leader told them, this is the most enlightened country in the world. It cannot get any worse. And a lot of the Jews in World War I fought for Germany. Okay. And that did not help them during the Nazi regime. Now, when the war started, they attacked Poland. Unlike Europe, which was occupied, Poland was not occupied. Poland was annexed. And I want you to understand the difference between occupation and annexation. If it's occupied, you still have certain rights. very few, but you still have some of them. Okay, you can do it. When you're annexed, you become part of the greater Germany, part of that country. And when they annexed Poland, in Germany, they did not want the Jews, but Poland became now part of the greater Germany. And they found in Poland 3.3 million Jews. What do you do with them? Okay, and this is how it evolved. And what happened is the unofficial Holocaust started on June 22nd, 1941, when the Wehrmacht attacked the former Soviet Union. Behind the troops were special groups called Einsatzgruppen. Their job was to kill the subhumans. The Russians were considered by the Germans subhumans, and at the same time to murder the Jews. As a matter of fact, together with their collaborators, they murdered by bullets 1.5 million Jews. Among them, there were also 1.5 million children. But that was the unofficial one. The official one started on January 20, 1942, in a city which today is part of Berlin. 15 high-ranking Nazi criminals got together to decide the final solution to the Jewish question. That was the name that they gave it to, to the Holocaust. Among them, there was one person who was not the policymaker. He was the one that implemented. And if you don't know his name, I will tell you, his name was Adolf Eichmann. And I use Adolf Eichmann to understand the efficiency of the Nazis and their collaborators to be able to murder in such a short period of time 11 million people. Adolf Eichmann in 1944, when everybody knew that Germany will lose the war, in only 2 months deported 437,000 Hungarian Jews to their deaths. So it's very important for us to know. The other thing is we have to use the proper words. So let me give an example. I do not use names, but I will attack what people say. And I'm talking about people that are in the government. Somebody mentioned that Holocaust is happening in the world. And that is a complete lie. Okay? The Holocaust is not happening today. There is a difference between the Holocaust and genocide. Genocide is the murder of a group of people. Holocaust, on the other hand, is the annihilation of the group of people. The Jews were the only group of people slated to be completely annihilated from the face of the earth. The Jews were known as a nationality, as a nation, religious things. You cannot annihilate a religion. So what did they did? They called the Jews a race, and you can eradicate a race. Okay, and what they wanted to do, once they were going to accomplish and to murder, they had on the list on the Bansi 11 million people, European people that they want, Jews that they wanted to murder. Once they were going to accomplish that task, they were going to open up a museum in Prague, and they were going to call it the Museum of the Extinct Jewish Race. So I want for people to understand, okay, separate please. Holocaust and genocide, they are not the same thing, just as anti-Semitism is not the same thing with hatred. Okay, they're totally two separate issues. The one thing that completely shocked me is in 2013, there were 2 articles in New York Times and Daily Mail in London that the Nazis and their collaborators had 42,500 different type of camps. It's unreal. You can see also that everybody knows that 6 million Jews were murdered. But I don't know about you. I cannot relate to that number. To me, it's a number. I can't relate to it. Let's bring it to a common denominator. If you would be on your feet, okay, and silent for 1 minute for every victim of the Holocaust, you would be on your feet and silent close to 11.5 years. That will give you an idea, okay, what 6 million means. Okay. These are my parents, married in 1934, and yours truly was born in 1939. As a matter of fact, last month I celebrated my 81st birthday, so I'm probably the youngest Holocaust survivor you will ever meet. I met a lot of survivors, children of Holocaust survivors, and I met only one person that is younger than me. He was born in 1943 in a labor camp in the same area where I was. Not in the same camp, but in the same area. Now, I don't know if you noticed or not, but if you take a good look, you can see that I have not changed. I'm still the same, except that right now I have a neck. See, I was a chubby little boy. Okay. We were not deported by the Germans. We were deported by the Romanians. The city where I was born, and I will show you a map shortly, was called Chernobyl. And in 1940, Western Ukraine was given to Poland, okay, and to Romania. The area in Poland was called Galicia. In Romania, there were two areas, Bukovina and Bessarabia. I was born in Bukovina. So in 1940, the area was given to Romania, and therefore we were deported by the Romanians. And on the way to Transnistria, a lot of people perished. As a matter of fact, 2/3, okay, from epidemics, hunger, disease, everything else. And I wanted to understand something very important. The Nazis were not the only bastards. So were the Hungarians, so were the Poles, so were the Ukrainians, so were the Italians, so were the French. The whole world participated. Now, an example, the Romanian troops, in reprisal for an act of sabotage. And in every war there are acts of sabotage. They burned alive 19,000, okay, Ukrainian Jews from Odessa. As you can see here, this is the map. Everything I'm going to show you is Romania. I was born outside of Romania. Okay, and this is the area, like I told you, you know, Bukovina in Bessarabia, Bukovina. And interestingly enough, we were sent, okay, to Ukraine. This area was called Transnistria, and the name of the camp, the labor camp where I was Mogilev Podolsk. What happened is in 1946, the Romanian government decided to allow a small group of Jews, approximately 3,000, to repatriate. And my father was born in Romania proper, here. So he opted, okay, to choose the lesser of two evils. And for whatever reason is, we came and we settled here in Transylvania where he grew up until 1961, when finally the whole family finally received the visas. We went to Israel. In 1968, by myself, I came to the United States. Okay. Now, I don't know if you're aware of, but until the trial of Adolf Eichmann, the Holocaust survivors did not want to burden the children with those horror stories. They wanted the children to live, okay, to grow up and to live a normal life. So remember that when my parents and I were deported, I was only a year and a half. I have no memory of that period of time. And my parents, except telling me that they are Holocaust survivors, and I heard, little things, okay, basically they did not talk about it. So I knew nothing about it. And for 63 years, I felt I don't belong to the Holocaust survivors because I did not know anything. I had no story. I also felt I don't belong to the children of the Holocaust survivors because most of them were born in the DP camp, displaced people camps. These were camps run by the Allies. They were provided with food, they were provided with clothing, medical care, and the threat of death did not exist. And something happened in November 1st, November 2nd of 2020. The Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. closed its door to the general public for 2 days. It opened it up only to the Holocaust survivors, their children, and their liberators. There were over 8,000 people from all over the world. And if you don't know what I'm going to say, I will translate it for you. Bashir meant to be. At the table where I was sitting, I met a man born in the same city, been in the same camp, the same years, 1941, 1944. He was taken, was 8 months old. I was taken when I was a year and a half. I finally met somebody like me. And this is the difference between history and living history. And I also just found out something recently, and I'm going to share it with you. Okay? When we look, okay, the difference between the way other ethnic groups look at history and the way Jews look at it is totally different. History is made up of two words: his story. For us, it's ours. We remember. That's why even we call it the Yom HaZikaron, okay? Because everything for us is memory. And this is different the way we look at it than the way other people look at it, okay? So it's more than just reading from the books. So finally meeting that person prompted me to stop ignoring being a Holocaust survivor and do something about it. In 2007, I joined the Holocaust Museum here in New York, the second largest Holocaust museum in the country. And in 2008, March 11, I got my first assignment to speak to sixth graders. I'm sure that a lot of you have spoken publicly, but if you remember, your first presentation is not the best. It's not the most complete. I did not have a story. I did not know that I can tell a story. And most importantly, I had no idea what impact I will have on young people. Again, Bashir, they sent me thank you letters, each one better than the other. But one sixth grader changed my life forever. She wrote, P.S. Your story was overwhelming, and I promise I'll pass your story to my children. That's, okay, what happened, my new life, my journey as a speaker. Okay. The other interesting thing is, we're going to talk about it. I'm not only a survivor of the Holocaust, but I am also a survivor of life challenges. And I will tell you later on, I will tell you two examples. I went through a lot in life, but I'll tell you about two stories. I do not want you to feel sorry for me, but I just want to learn. Under no circumstances should you ever give up, should you ever lose hope. Now, let's go back a little bit. Most of the children my age did not survive. And if you will ask any survivor, how come you're still alive? Everybody will use only one word, and that is luck. There is no rhyme, there is no reason why somebody lived, somebody died. My luck was that I was never separated from my parents. They found some use, okay, of me. I was subjected to medical experiments. And later on, after the medical experiments, they had no use for me. So it came a stage that I was dying of starvation. I wanted to understand that in Ukraine, the winter is bitterly cold. For a loaf of bread, my father gave away his winter coat. My parents not only did have to fight to survive, they also had to care for me. Okay, so eventually, what happened is by telling my story, and not only telling what I went through, but how I overcame it. Okay, I became also a motivational speaker. Let me talk a little bit about the medical experiments. I have been all my life in excruciating pain, and I will be in pain for the rest of my life. The pain that I suffered from was head, neck, shoulder, and back. However, because it was not localized, it was constantly shifting from place to place, and the intensity could be a 7 and 8 or 2 and 3. Okay, they could not find a very specific cure for me. I was an extremely powerful addictive medication, but because I used it for pain and not for recreation, I did not get addicted. In about between 25 and 30 years ago, I did not like the side effects, and I decided to learn to live without painkillers. I wanted to understand that I also have a very high pain tolerance. And today, I do not use painkillers. For you to understand how difficult the pain that I had to suffer from is the painkillers that I used were about 1 or 2 levels below morphine. It was extremely excruciating. And you will ask me, how do you know, since your parents didn't talk about it in front of you, how do you know that you were subjected to medical experiments? Uh, I lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And in 71, my parents came to visit me. And I did not expect them to come home that early. And suddenly they came home, and I was in one of those days that it was an excruciating pain on the floor, okay, almost unable to move. My parents never knew that I was in pain because I'm coming from a generation that is very stoic. You will not see it on my face, okay? So my father, when he saw me in that situation, he was so shocked that inadvertently he told me that I was subjected to medical experiments. And it did not help me with the pain, but it gave me the courage to ask for compensation from the German government. Before that, I want to talk a little bit about my parents, also to give you a little background. My father was an orphan of both of his parents. My grandfather died before he was born. My grandmother, unable to take care of 8 children, decided to take the 2 youngest one and commit suicide. A stranger saved the children, but my grandmother did commit suicide. So my father grew up in an orphanage in Vienna. And at age 13 in those days, they threw you out. So my father became streetwise. It's a different streetwise than today. And that helped him to survive, okay, the war. But most importantly, even after the war, it was very difficult, okay, to buy things. To give an example, we could not afford to buy butter or cheese. So my mother bought bottles of milk, let them stay for a very long time, and eventually through whatever process, it turned into butter and cheese. So people had to be very creative. At the same time, another thing happened is that to buy a loaf of bread, you had to bribe somebody. But keep in mind that that guy could, okay, uh, tell about you, okay, to the government that you're taking away bread from somebody else. You would have been in jail. So my father, okay, since he became street smart, he knew who he can trust in everything else, and he was able to provide for the family. My mother, on the other hand, was an uneducated woman. Uh, my grandfather was remarried, so my mother suffered from abuse from her stepmother. But also, my grandfather did not allow my mother to go to school. She had to stay home to help provide for the family. But although she was an uneducated woman, boy, did she have a heart of gold. So I took my sensitivity from my mother and my confidence from my father. Like I told you before, when my father told me that I was subjected to medical experiments, I decided, you know something? Why don't I apply for compensation? But keep in mind, the Germans did not want to pay unless you had the proof. And if you don't have the proof, okay, and they could get away with it, they did not want to pay. So first of all, what I did is I said, were you subjected to Nazi medical experiments in the Nazi regime? I said, yes. Okay, Transnistria, Ukraine, Mogilev, 1941, 1944. I'm not going to read to you, but the application was in February 8, 2002. Keep in mind, okay, that number one, I don't know what they did to me. Strike one. Okay, I was homeless. I had no documents. Strike two. And in 2002, everybody was gone. I had no witnesses. So I wrote, okay, and I did this application just for me to feel good, knowing that they will not respond. Also knowing that there's no way that they will pay me. To my shock, on January 26, 2004, not only did they answer me, but they paid me. It was not based on what I wrote. It was based on their records. The Holocaust is the biggest crime in human history. It is also the most recorded one. We will never know, ever, the extent of what happened during those days. And I will, after I'm talking, let me stop here. Let me tell you about somebody. I don't know how many of you have heard of a reverend, okay, Patrick Dubois from France. Patrick Dubois formed a group, Ahad Ulum, and he went to Ukraine, to small towns. Did not accuse anybody, but asked everybody, do you remember something? And nobody knew anything, but each one said something. You know something? There was a small hill over there. Okay. There were some Jews, there are no more Jews here. So everyone said something that by itself meant nothing. But Patrick Dubois with his team were able to, okay, connect the dots. And they found additional 85 mass graves that the world never knew. The Nazis have destroyed a lot of the records. And right now the records are open. On the other hand, okay, we don't have enough people to do the research. There is so much more that we can learn from it. Let's go back to the letter. So I got paid one single payment of 2,500 German marks. It came out to $5,348.36. Financially, it did not make a huge difference in my life. But there are two paragraphs that are very important to understand. Number one, based on the information and evidence you provided. What evidence? What information? Your eligibility has been established as a victim of medical experiments. Like I said before, it was based on their records. They collected, okay, records. They kept very good records, artifacts, because they wanted to open the museum of the extinct Jewish race. The other paragraph, and this is very important, and I want you to remember this, fully aware that no amount of money can compensate you for the severe injustices that you suffered. Okay, we hope that you will regard this payment as a symbolic acknowledgement of those injustices, which means that the German government admits that they did medical experiments in other places, not only in Auschwitz. Okay, so this is very important. And why is this important? I spoke in Bayonne, New Jersey for 7 years. Obviously, last year I couldn't do it because of the COVID, to 735 seventh graders. On May 6, 2015, a reporter was there and wrote a very nice article. By the way, when we are talking about words, and I have to go back and to give you some examples, a lot of people are using the word Nazi. There are no Nazis today in this world. There are people that believe in the ideology, the Nazi ideology, but these are people of today. So let's refer to them with a proper word, not perpetuate false narratives. They are neo-Nazis. In New Jersey, the neo-Nazis are quite strong. And they picked up this article word by word. But take a look what they did. They changed the headline. Jew Holocaust claims Nazi medical experiment he can't remember still causes pain. Sounds very innocent. It took me about 2.5 months to 3 months to realize they called me 3 times a liar. Holocaust. It's made up of 2 words, Holocaust, hoax. Hoax, it never happened. So if it never happened, how can I talk about it? I'm a liar. Claims Nazi medical experiment he can't remember. That's a true statement. But they don't explain why I don't remember. Because the doctors did not come to my parents and tell them, this is what they did to your son. They did not know, I don't know. And one still causes them pain. It's also a true statement, but they don't say why, because my pain, okay, the type of pain that I have is not localized. So they could not find a specific cure for it. The second sentence, unlike the millions of other Jew Holocausters, he somehow was not experimented by Joseph Mengele. The innuendo is that only one person did millions of experiments. No human being can do that. Millions of people are not liars. Millions of people were not experimented. And Joseph Mengele was never in Europe. He was in Auschwitz. He was the angel of death. He separated who will live and who will die. And when he did medical experiments, he did it only on twins. So if you are ignorant, boy, do you fall on their trap. Okay? They also called me a lying rat. And I teach especially the young people, do not call a person or a group of people by the name of an animal, because that's dehumanizing them, and that is a license to hurt them. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I want just to give you a couple examples of the words, okay, that are misused, and to tell you a little bit about Israel. Especially the next generation, Jewish generation, a lot of them believe that Israel came into existence because of the Holocaust and anti-Semitism. That's not true. They were a factor, but the reason is because the British Empire collapsed. Okay, as a matter of fact, we were given only 22% of the area that was promised to us. Syria and Jordan did not exist. As a matter of fact, a lot of the people that lived before the establishment of the State of Israel, okay, in their passport it said, okay, Palestine. Okay, Jewish people were born in Palestine. So therefore, we have to be very careful when we use Palestinians, okay, because until the establishment of the State of Israel, the whole area was Palestine. So to give an example of the connection between the Holocaust and Israel, during the Holocaust, Jews died because we did not have a country. On Yom HaZikaron, we remember the people that died for us to have a country. It's a very, very important distinction, especially in today's, what's happening today in the world, okay? And you probably know that last year, no, I think 2 years ago, a lot of people from France left and had a place to go, and they went to Israel. Now, some people are using the word, when it comes to Israel, occupation, that are occupiers. That's a falsehood. Israel, okay, is the rebirth of our own homeland. Like Greeks are coming from Greece, Italians are coming from Italy, Jews are coming from Judea. So even our leaders use the word West Bank. That's perpetuating a false narrative. We should start using the word Judea and Samaria, period. Now, if we accept the fact that this is our return to our own homeland, you cannot use the word occupation. You cannot occupy your own homeland. You cannot occupy it, okay? At the same time, they use many other words. And these are leaders in our government that use the word West Bank. But they're teaching the wrong things to the next generation. People ask me to make comparison of the refugee situation with what happened during those days. And you know who I'm talking about. Somebody said that we have concentration camps in this country. Boy, is that a lie. And boy, is that perpetuated, especially in campuses. First of all, we do not have concentration camp in this country. You want to compare it, like I told you before, is compare it to the DP camps. However, I do use the word concentration camp, but it has to be in the proper context. And I don't know how many of you know about the Uyghur people. I was asked to speak on their behalf in front of the UN and also at their national rally in Washington, D.C. You may be surprised, I never heard of them. So I had to do some research, and I found out that during the war, the Russian Jews, they wanted to escape being deported to Siberia or face other dire consequences. They went to the south, like Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. In Uzbekistan live the Muslims. Their language is very close to the Turkish one, and they received the Jews with open arms. But in China, there are 15 million Uyghur people, and about 2 years ago, they started deporting them to so-called re-education camp. I lived in a communist country. Believe me, it has nothing to do with education. Number one, they are deported. They are not coming like they come here in the south, in the country, they are coming willingly. They are deported. They are tortured. They are forced to give up their heritage, their traditions, and to accept, they become slaves, and to accept the Chinese culture. If they would marry a Chinese person, they would automatically get a house and a car. But apparently they're just as stubborn as the Jewish people, and they don't want to give it up. The families here in other parts of the world know nothing what happened to their families, cannot be in touch with them, and they're afraid to call their families in China because they may be deported. And because they are tortured, quite often they are murdered. What I'm saying is, in the proper context, we can use the word concentration camp. Otherwise, no. So remember again, there are no concentration camp in this country. Let me stop here. I've given the opportunity to ask me a question before I'm going to another segment, and that will be about being a motivational speaker.
So Sami, I see a lot of comments about your presentation, but I don't see
Any questions?
any questions so far. Yes.
Okay.
So we can open it for questions. We can open the chat for questions. We can open the Zoom for questions at the end for people to speak at the end if you want.
Okay, because I wanted to stop because, okay, from my personal experience.
Yeah.
I have sometimes difficulty to listen to somebody talk for a while.
Somebody said, what is the pain level you have today, and how do you manage it?
Okay. The pain is still there. Okay, but I've learned, because I have the what do you call it? High pain tolerance. Okay, I can tolerate it, and you will not see it on my face. So people that don't know me don't know that I'm in pain all the time, but it's all the time. So it's just a question, okay, because it's moving where it is. It's a question of the intensity. And I've learned to live with it, to adjust to it. And people are totally unaware that I'm in pain, because you cannot see it in my face. Like even my father, until I was about 31, 32 years old, never knew that I was in pain. Even the doctors did not believe me because I had excruciating back pain, besides the head and the neck, but back pain. And there are no tests to prove that you have a backache. And what the doctors do is they ask you to do certain things, okay, to bend whatever it is. And I knew how it will affect me, the pain that it will cause me. But they couldn't see it on my face. So imagine yourself, for about 45 years, even the doctors did not believe me that I'm in pain. Okay. So today, You know, I told you about close to 30 years ago. I did not like the side effects of the painkillers that I used, and I've learned to live without it. Even right now, I'm in pain, but talking to you, you would never know.
Did you ever learn what experiments were done on you from the records from the Germans, or you don't know?
That's a very good question, and I don't like to dwell on negatives. Number one, I don't know if the records are still there or not, because they destroyed a lot of the records. I would have to hire lawyers. It's a very, very long process to go through it. Okay, so it's not worth it. Okay, so I turn a negative into a positive. So I concentrate on the positive things. And the same thing, like I showed you with the neo-Nazis. Okay, with that article that they put on the internet, is I teach the young people, okay, that not everything that you hear, not everything that you read, not everything that you see is the gospel truth. Do me a favor. There are enough good sources. Do the research. And the neo-Nazis, the Holocaust deniers, I would never debate with them. They know exactly, okay, they're much more informed than I am. And like I gave you an example over there, is they are extremely clever and they use every word with a very specific word. They use the word that I did not use the name of Joseph Mengele. Not everybody knows, okay, who Joseph Mengele was. The statistics right now, how ignorant people are, it's amazing. Okay, even here in the United States, if you want, I can give you some numbers. It is absolutely astonishing how ignorant people are. And that is my job, my mission in life at this particular stage is to educate the next generation. I was completely shocked. What happened is in 2018, I was at the Chabad house, and I had the opportunity to really get into a discussion because there were only two Jewish students that came. And we got into a long discussion. I was completely shocked. And they had family members that were in the Holocaust, how ignorant they were about the evolution of the Holocaust. And that's why I started, you know, last year with the COVID, I started, you know, to integrate, okay, the story of the evolution of the Holocaust. Okay, if there are no questions, let's go to the next subject.
Yeah, let's go, and then we'll do some at the end afterwards as well.
You are looking at this nice picture. You are wondering, what does this have to do with the Holocaust? And you will be surprised, absolutely nothing. About 3 years ago, I started to have, okay, to enjoy some benefits of growing old, okay? Which means difficulty walking long distances, okay, going on an incline, okay, and climbing stairs. In 2018, in October, I was in Mexico, and my friend, I was on a speaking tour, and my friend took me to the highest pyramid, the pyramid of the sun, the Aztec pyramid. Boy, oh boy, I had no intention of climbing all the way up. My first goal was to reach the first level. But as soon as I reached the first level, I said, you know something? Why don't I try the second one? How about the third one? And little by little, I reached the top. And when I reached the top, I raised my hands. And now you have the honor to meet the Jewish Rocky Balboa. I think you know who I'm talking about. So basically, I use it as a motivation to motivate young people never to be satisfied with what they have achieved. Always go one step further, okay? Never be satisfied with what you achieve. My motto in life, also interestingly, which I did not tell you, is that although I went through a lot, I am not what happened to me. That's not my identity. I am what I choose to be. And I choose to be a happy person, happy with my life. I'm going to give you two examples. I don't want you to feel sorry for me, but what I want you to do is to learn under no circumstances should you ever give up, should you ever lose hope. In 1996, at age 56, I don't know if you can visualize it, I was newly born. I could not be in touch with the people that were important in my life. I had no money, and I wanted to commit suicide. And as a matter of fact, I closed the window and I turned on the gas. And before I was halfway gone, but I still was a little bit lucid. And I said, before I do that, let me go to see my father. He lived in Israel. And after I saw my father, I realized that I've never been a quitter. And I said, I will recover. How do you recover from something like that? Without having a support system, no money, okay, all alone, by volunteering. And I used to volunteer for 18 different organizations because each one gave me something that was missing in my life. So number one, the most important one, was the human touch. So I decided to join, they still exist today, to join Big Apple Greeter, take and visitors from other states and other countries and show them around the city. And I had two perks. I used to live in, in Brooklyn. So when I came to Manhattan, it was just to go to a specific place and go back. Did not know Manhattan at all. So one of the perks was that if I want to show people around, I have to know something about it. Number one. Number two, okay, is today, if I would have the money, I could go almost anywhere in the world. And there will be somebody that will host me and will show me the city that they love. And all I have to do is to spend with them 4 hours. But because I love being with people, okay, I spend with them the whole day. So when you volunteer, you will volunteer for something that you like. You're not going to volunteer for something you don't like. And you will always get a lot more than what you put in. The other ones, unfortunately, the organization does not exist anymore. It was HAI. My job was to pick up tickets and distribute to underprivileged people like myself, and to write a simple report. Okay, who came, who did not come, okay, were they on time or late? And I had two perks. Number one, I could see the show. Number two, and don't destroy my reputation because I grew up in Transylvania, which means I'm not a nice person. But okay, I was forced to be a nice person. I could bring somebody with me. So it gave me the opportunity to meet new people, to make new friends and everything else. And you know how expensive things are, Broadway shows and the other events. I've seen more Broadway shows than you can think of. Okay, sports events, movies, theater, ballet, opera, concerts, even something that I would never watch on TV. And this is wrestling. I know nothing about it. But being at Madison Square Garden, it's a whole spectacle with the fireworks, with the excitement, with the kids screaming. It's really something. Every time I had the opportunity, I would volunteer for it. So that's why I'm saying it's very important, okay, to volunteer. And I hope, okay, especially the young people, that they will do that. There are two things in this country that I don't like what's happening. And it's not right now, okay? It's not in the last 4 years. This has been going on for a very long time. If you really pay attention, is you will find that people have forgotten how to disagree in a civil way. You will also notice one other thing, that they blame each other. Nobody takes responsibility. Okay? And I have decided to become a free man. And I'm not talking free to go on the street, to go different places. I'm talking free here. When IBM came out with the computers, there was a saying, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. What you put in your head, that stays. You put positive thoughts, guess what? You will use positive words, you will have a positive attitude, you will have positive experiences, and you will be a happier person. You put in negative thoughts, that's exactly what is going to happen. So be sure that your thinking starts with the way you think. Okay. So what happened is, I have decided to take responsibility for becoming homeless. What happened is, the people that I gave a lot of money, some of it I had to borrow, were people that I trusted with my life. Therefore, I gave them cash. Therefore, I did not put anything in writing. So now I decided to take responsibility. You know something? They are not guilty. They took advantage of my stupidity. By taking responsibility, I was able to accept the past. I was able also to let go of the past. I decided, number one, to forgive myself for my stupidity, for what I did. I decided to be kind to myself. And by being a free man from the head, I don't have the need to blame anybody. I don't have the need to blame circumstances. You probably have heard a lot of people using the word when they go through a trauma, why me? I have never asked myself that question. I dealt with the issue for a day, 3 days, a week, and then I concentrated, what do I do next to move forward? It's always moving forward. The past belongs to the past. There is nothing you can do about it. Okay? Okay? Move forward. The other thing is, we all have a choice to react in a positive manner to that situation, any given situation. It's our choice. That also puts you something that it's important to all of us, and that is to be in control. And I also learned that suffering is universal. Victimhood, that is optional. And I want everybody to understand, with everything that I went through in my life, I have never ever felt like a victim. I was always as a survivor. As a survivor, whatever you want, it will be okay within your reach. Summary, my whole life was and is an unfinished journey made out of choices. Even if I don't do anything, It's still a choice. Okay? Don't say, well, I didn't do anything, so I did not make any choice. You made a choice to do nothing. And I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to be. I live in Manhattan, the most expensive city in the country, on a monthly income of $1,316, and I still smile. Okay, so it's everything is here. How you accept things and everything else. There are certain things that I cannot have it. So I'm trying to find other things, okay, that keep me happy. The other issue, I have a son. I have 2 grandchildren. I cannot be in touch with them. How do you overcome something like that without being a bitter person? And all of us have a want and a need. I don't know about you, but my want is to go to Australia. Don't ask me why. That's my want. If it happens, wonderful. If it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. Okay, I can, if I want to learn something about Sydney, I can Google it. Okay, it's not. It's obviously it's a different experience being in person there, but it's not the end of the world. But I have a need, and a need has to be fulfilled. My need is to teach and to share. I cannot do it with my son. I cannot do it with my grandchildren. So my need is fulfilled when I go to schools. And I actually tell them, okay, for the 2 hours that we have together, you help me fulfill that need. And whether you know it or not, for those 2 hours, you become my substitute grandchildren. So when we go through difficult times, we have to find a substitute. But do me a favor, find a healthy substitute. Okay? Now, I'll give you another example. You know how difficult it is to have a foundation. Number one, you have to have money. You have to know people in power with a lot of guilt. Okay? And they have to be really people known in the community, so other people will be willing to put their hand in the pocket. Here it is. I live under the poverty line. By the way, 1/3 of the Holocaust survivors in the United States live under the poverty line. I don't know anybody with power, okay, with money. Okay? I heard of them, and if I met them occasionally in some place at a gala event or whatever it is, I have no connection to them. And yet, I have a tax-deductible foundation to give scholarship to upstanding students, okay, to honor my parents, obviously to honor the victims of the Holocaust, to recognize the Holocaust survivors. And it's amazing. So that's why I'm saying, never give up, never lose hope. And the one thing that I really want everybody to do, especially the young people, be yourselves. Don't imitate anybody else. Okay, you are the strongest person. Also, everything starts with you. You want to be nice to somebody, learn to be nice to yourself. You want to be kind to somebody, learn to be kind to yourself. You want to forgive somebody, learn to forgive yourself, like I did. So I want you to know that in your life, the most important person is Y-O-U. You. Remember that. Obviously, all my life I was an optimist, and even my mother was wondering, Where did you take that optimism from? I couldn't put it in words. And so all I used to say, that's me. That's me. What does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. But one of the organizations I used to volunteer is Make-A-Wish Foundation. Okay, very inspirational kids. And one kid, okay, came to New York to meet in 2012. Okay, no, 2002. In 2002, he came to meet his heroes, the firefighters, after 9/11. And with Big Apple Greeter, I took him and his mother to show them around the city. In 2004, he came back and he wanted to see me again. And he brought me a simple, okay, button. And I want you to understand, you cannot change anybody. But the only thing you can do, you can change somebody's perspective. And something that maybe I have said today, a sentence, something that you read, or like in this particular case, a simple button, okay, changed my perspective on life. Okay, he gave me this one, and as you can see in the center is his picture. Okay, when he visited me the first time, he was 7 years old. Now he's 9 years old. In the bottom, the day that he was completely cured, he had leukemia, November 20, 2004. And you can see what it says on top. For the first time, at age 64, I was able to put in words why I was an optimist. I have never, ever felt like a victim. That's very important. Now, a lot of people, when they talk about being an optimist or a pessimist, normally use the example of a glass half full, half empty. I have another one. A pessimist sees in every opportunity a problem, but an optimist sees in every problem an opportunity. And let me give you an example. When I was in the shelter, I was a very heavy smoker, over 3 packs a day. I was a broken man and did not really want to live. I just did not want to commit suicide, but I did not care. But I always had a very strong willpower all my life. And it was an occasion for me to see if I still have the willpower to live. And I said, when I will quit smoking cold turkey, suddenly I will recover. I did not say I will try. I will try is not a commitment. I said I will. December 13th, 1996. If you're superstitious, Friday the 13th, I had my last cigarette. My parents, when we came back, my sister is just a child of Holocaust survivor. She was born in 1946 when we came from the former Soviet Union, okay, when I came to Romania. She was born actually in the same city where Elie Wiesel, okay, I was born. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I wasn't even 7 years, I was only 6.5 years old. My father, to make me look like a big boy, okay, he put a cigarette in my hand. I don't know if you can see it, okay? I was always a Zionist. My parents were. I belonged to Bnei Akiva, which is a religious Zionist youth group. Okay, and some of the people here, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one, they were not from our small town. They were, okay, pioneers that came to our town on their way to Palestine. Okay, and I don't know if you see where I am, but this one, and where is Farkas? I don't see it. And okay, and me, we were in the same class, but because everything that I went through, I was not as developed as they were. Okay. As a matter of fact, just for the funny part is my mother always thought that I would be a dwarf. Okay. In the previous picture, if you can see it, you can see that I have very short legs. So my mother thought I would be a dwarf. So she went to a doctor, and the doctor said, okay, I have a solution. We'll take out the tonsils. Okay, they took out the tonsils, I'm still short. My great-grandparents, my grandparents, from between 35 and 42 people from my father's side, only 2 survived. My uncle was not a survivor. My uncle was a refugee. And remember when I told you that when people ask me to make comparison to refugee situation to the past, right now many countries are accepting refugees. Believe it or not, during the Nazi regime, there were only 3 countries, only 3, that officially accepted Jewish refugees. China, Dominican Republic, and Philippines. And if you want, they can give you the numbers. Okay. The 2 brothers, okay, my uncle, these were the 2 brothers that were saved by strangers. And when my father was in, my uncle was, because my uncle was 7 years older than my father. So these were the 2 young kids that were saved by the strangers. They met on January 30th, 1966 for the first time in 47 years in Santa Barbara. This is interesting, especially the young people. Do the research, okay, your history. I found out that I'm first cousin, twice removed, with Carlos Schanzer. If you don't know what it means, first cousin, twice removed, is my paternal grandmother was first cousin with Carlos Schanzer, which means that if I am, let's say I am and Karen, if we are first cousins, okay, our entire generation, okay, going down the line, will be first, my entire generation will be first cousin with Karen. It's just a question how many generations below. So because my paternal grandmother was first cousin with him, that's why it's twice removed. Let's find out who he was. He was the foreign minister of Italy in 1922, and his successor was Benito Mussolini. Now, okay, all the tragedies in the world, genocide, Holocaust, okay, can be summarized with one simple word, that is bullying. You can bully a person, you can bully a group of people. Since my father lost so many people during the Nazi regime, he vowed to himself he will never buy a German product. He will never set foot in Germany. And as long as I lived in their house, I felt the same way. But living alone, my attitude has changed. Okay, and then normally how somebody feels, it goes at least 2 generations, children, grandchildren. And I was 2 years ago, I was invited to go to Germany to meet descendants of high-ranking Nazi criminals. My first reaction was, you know, should I go? How will I feel? And the interesting part is I'm glad that I went because I found out that we have a lot of things in common. And these children and grandchildren of the high-ranking Nazi criminals today are very pro-Israel, and they are fighting anti-Semitism not only in Germany but all over the world. Okay. I received awards. Okay, not important. Now here I can say honestly that I was hanging from a lamppost. That's in front of the Holocaust Museum here in New York. And I'll stop here, I think, but let me just tell you one thing, because I want to give you the opportunity to ask questions. Every question, okay, is an important question. It has to be answered. There is no such thing as a stupid question. A young kid, I think it was fifth grader, asked me to summarize 72 years of life in 2 sentences. You should have seen the expression of the teachers and the other kids. And you would think it was a stupid question. It was actually probably the best question, one of the best questions. I gave an answer. It was not a bad one, but I came home and I was not happy. And I said, how do you answer something like that? And I started to think, and I decided to look at the 3 most important moments in my life. And number 1 is I knew the joy of parenting. That was the birth of my son. It's the greatest high that anyone can have, something you cannot teach, must be experienced. Number 2, I knew hate, but not from here. That's easy to overcome. I knew it from the heart. I know what hate can do to a human being. I want to tell you, Sami, as a human being, did not exist. I couldn't believe how low I did sink. I was able to overcome it, and today I'm unable to hate anybody. And the third one, you may be very surprised, is probably one of the most important things in my life, is being homeless. How is it possible? And this is, okay, with everything that I went through, I did not lose myself. I remained true to myself, who I am, okay? And the most interesting important is I started volunteering. And volunteering helped me. And I also, not only that I found the things that were missing in my life, but I also found my life's mission. A lot of people are looking, okay, what will I do for the rest of my life? And I had no particular hobby or whatever it is, okay, being homeless, okay, I found my life mission, and that is to educate the next generation. And if anybody knows anybody that needs a speaker, the busier you can keep me, the happier I'll be. I'm still able at this particular stage in my life to give 6 presentations, one after another in one day.
Sami, thank you so much. We appreciate your stories. We appreciate your time. I really can't express how grateful we are for you to spend your time with us and share your story with us.